This week I want to talk about my favorite deer rifle. Last week we talked about my favorite hunting knife, and you guys got in there with lots of comments. It was a great week for comments and a great week from you guys. I want to do the same thing this week. I want to talk about my favorite rifle, my favorite deer hunting rifle. And what is your favorite deer rifle? Leave me a comment, tell a story, because everybody loves reading you guys' comments, not just me. I get a lot of feedback on your comments of how people just plain read almost every single comment. So, hey, let's talk about deer rifles. Well, good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from the Rustic log cabin in Northern Maine. Welcome to my shop this morning. It is cool. It is fall. We're October 1st and the temperature is great for wearing one of my flannel shirts today. Boy, I like that because that gets me thinking about deer hunting. But the first thing I gotta do, I gotta winterize this tractor. You probably can't see it in that picture, but I'm leaning over a Case 255. Not a big tractor, but it needs to be winterized, so I can stop thinking about that. I winterized it last fall before I put it to bed. And then this spring, when I got up, the antifreeze was completely gone. One of the hoses I didn't quite get tight enough, so over the course of the winter, all of the antifreeze leaked out of it. So this spring I put in a little bit of antifreeze, mostly water. So now it's time, before winter gets here, to get the water out of it and get it winterized for about 40 below zero. And that way it'll be done again. But this year, over the summer, I picked up a snowblower for the back of it. Haven't tried it out yet. I'm hoping the snowblower is not too big for the tractor, but we'll see. If it is, it's a great time of year to sell a snowblower. So if that's the way it plays out, then that's the way it plays out, and we'll look for a smaller one. I'm in no big rush. But with thinking about deer hunting, it was time to probably start thinking about campy kind of things. Last week I did a video on my hunting knife. This week I want to do a video on my hunting rifle. And boy, you guys really responded to that my hunting knife video last week. So I'm hoping you do the same thing this week. You guys left a ton of comments about your hunting knife, and some left stories about their hunting knife. So let's do the same thing this week. Let's, I know, I've done this a long time now on these videos, and every time we talking about favorite rifles, the comments go haywire. Lots of them, and we all love the comments. You guys would not believe how many people read the comments. And not just one or two. Most of the people that will respond to me, they read. I swear they read every single comment. So I'm not the only one reading your comments. So leave me a comment anyways. Tell me a short story about your rifle, and tell me about your favorite rifle. Maybe tell me the story about how you came by your favorite rifle, your favorite deer hunting rifle, your favorite bear hunting rifle, or goose gun, or any of that stuff. Your favorite shotgun and the story behind it. The story behind a lot of these guns is really interesting, just like the story behind a lot of the hunting knife was. Boy, it's really good story. So anyways, I'll get the ball rolling. If you watch my videos for any length of time, to date, the only rifle that I have carried for deer hunting and bear hunting and moose hunting and caribou hunting has been my 30-06 pump. I bought the 30-06 pump, Remington. I think I was around 20 years old. I bought it brand new from Kmart back then. Kmart here in the state of Maine, bought it brand new back when I was 20 for $199. And that's a great shooting gun. It's a great shooting gun even to this day. I've picked up other 30-06s and say I'm going to bring them, but to date I haven't brought them. I have a 30-06 bolt action, a Ruger, and I also have a 30-06 single shot break open put out by Harrison Richardson. I haven't carried it, it's been my backup gun. The 30-06 single shot has always been my backup rifle. If I'm going on a trip up north or anything like that, it gives me a second rifle that's always sighted in and ready to go. So that's kind of what I picked that gun up years and years ago. I bought that gun for $150 brand new. And I forget how many years ago it was. It was a long time ago, at least 25 years ago. And it's as good a shape as it was when I picked it up back then. And I shoot it every year. I sight it in every year. When I bring my rifles to the shooting range, that gun goes along, that rifle, and it gets sighted in right along with my 30-06 pump. So that's the story behind that. And boy, how many deer hunting stories can go with that? So many. You know, I remember the first buck that I shot with it, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing in my scope. It was just a small buck, nothing major about it. But what was fun about it was just the whole, and it's more than liking. Well, I'll try to tell the story in this video about that particular buck. It was I can't remember what day of week it was. It was sometime between Monday and Friday. I got into my head, my great-grandfather used to hunt right out back of my grandparents' home. And I got into my head that I kind of wanted to walk in his footsteps for a day. So I stopped in at my grandmother's house and had coffee with her that morning. And I asked, his name was Russell, Grandpa Russell. I said, Grammy, I said, where did Grandpa Russell hunt out here? I'd like to walk in his footsteps today if I can. And then, you know, just hunt my way up the mountain. There's a mountain behind the house, nothing major. There was a half a mountain behind her house, but it's still pretty steep. That's what I liked about hunting there. I mean, it was just about almost straight down in spots. So anyways, had coffee that morning, no rush. Just had coffee with her, enjoyed the moment. I had two grandmothers there. My grandmother and my great-grandmother was there, Grammy Russell. So they told me how Grandpa used to hunt up over the hill, over the ridge, up through there was a few apple trees up in there. He liked to go up on the top there and sit around those apple trees and all of that. So I had a rough idea of his path, where he'd go, and he shot deer back in there. Shot deer right there in the field behind the house. So anyways, I don't know when I left their place that morning. It was after a couple of good cups of coffee and some homemade donuts. Let me tell you that. It was no early trip into the woods by any shake of the stick. I probably didn't even leave their kitchen table until 8 o'clock in the morning. So anyways, I didn't get very far. I headed across the field. I headed up the half a mountain. And it was steep. My plan was to get to the top because you could look down over a long ways. Just the way the tree cover was, and they'd had a chopping in there. They had come in and cut down some trees, so you could see a long ways. once you got up on that hill, you could look down and you could see the, I want to call it the valley floor. I mean, I'm not trying to push that this was a huge mountain, because it wasn't. And I got to the top of where I wanted to sit, one step at a time, nice and quiet, nice and quiet. And I got to the top where I wanted to sit, and I turned around. I found a rock, I sat down. I wasn't sitting there 20 seconds. And I could see, at least 100 to 150 yards down over the hill was a little maple tree with a deer in it, and its head was going right up and down. I really couldn't see what it had for a rack. And it wouldn't have mattered, because I was on the kind of hunt, I was on a memory hunt. My memory hunt was I wanted to shoot a deer, and I wanted to hunt in my grandfather's footsteps. So it really wouldn't have mattered if I did see the rack. All I knew that it was a buck, because its head was beating a snot out of a little maple tree. But what made that so fun was when all I had was a straight-on shot. I had a straight-on shot to that buck. The only shot I had was its chest, straight, and the head was in the maple tree. So I took, and again, I know where my rifle shoots. I don't mind taking a tight shot any day of the week, because I know that rifle inside now. Anyways, I shot that deer right square in that chest, and that deer in my scope, I watched him flip. His head went over his ass. There ain't no other easier way to put it than that. That 30-06 bullet hit that deer and just flipped that deer right in a complete circle, and it was down right in its tracks right there. And I said to myself, well, that was a pretty good show. And I still didn't know what I had for a deer until I walked down over that hill, and it was 9:30 in the morning. So it was no longer than an hour and a half hunt to get me up to the top of that ridge that I wanted. And like I said, it paid off. What size deer? You know, you guys say, what size deer? What size deer? It was a buck. And it was a proud buck for me. But it was only a spike horn. He had, I don't know, 9-inch spikes, one on each side of his head. It hangs in there with the 8-pointers, the 9-pointers, because, like I said, that was a memory deer. I was thrilled to death to be able to take a deer on my grandfather's ground on a hunt that he would have hunted 40 years before me. So that is the story behind that buck. When people look at my wall in here, the buck racks, they always wonder about that spike horn. Why is that spike horn in there? Well, that spike horn's in there because it might mean more to me than the 8-pointers and the 9-pointers. So, anyways, that's my deer story. That's my rifle story, all tied up into one. And today is Tuesday, so I need to get this tractor winterized. I've got some more stuff to do around here, getting ready for winter. Cold temperatures makes you think of two things: deer season and getting ready for winter, finishing up. So you guys have a great week. I'm going in my shop, pouring me a cup of coffee, get going on this crap, and I'll see you next week.